Welcome to the Page One Podcast, a twice-weekly podcast featuring a variety of guests and thought leaders on topics ranging from channel strategies to tariffs, influencer marketing, best-in-class product launches, and all the details about how to accelerate your e-commerce sales with the big box retailers, or what we call R-commerce. Now here's your host, Luke Peters.
Thanks for joining us on the Page One Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Peters, and this is the podcast where I bring you the best and brightest leaders to share consumer product sales and marketing strategies that will help you grow your business. I'm the CEO and founder of Newer Appliances, where I cut my teeth selling products online and have now started Retail Band, where I hope to help other brands succeed in product launches, influencer marketing, and also B2B online sales strategy. And just a quick heads up, right now I am offering a free business evaluation of your online sales strategy. If you're a brand owner online and you're looking for some support, advice, and really like a clear-cut plan to help you move forward, go ahead and find me on LinkedIn or email me at luke@retailband.com. And today I am excited to interview Yvethe Tyszka. And Yvethe works for a brand called Coravin, which is helps you preserve your wine for a longer period of time. We'll get into that. And so in this episode, we're going to learn from Yvethe on how she is deploying customer insight-driven strategy to drive sales and exposure for Coravin. Every marketing department and brand leader needs to hear this episode. Welcome to the podcast, Yvethe.
Hi, how are you? Thank you, Luke, for having me.
Great to have you. Thanks for joining us today. And Yvethe is Vice President of Marketing for Coravin. Prior to Coravin, she worked for Newell Brands and Spectrum Brands. So it looks like you got some great experience working with some really strong brands. Before we dive into Coravin, is there anything that really shaped your marketing career? And, was it one of those companies or maybe before that? Just curious to hear, how you really got excited and deep into marketing.
Absolutely. So actually, it started at Nestle, which is a brand powerhouse, more than a product powerhouse. I was recruited as a marketing basic trainee. So that's how all the marketing people get in, and given exposure to a lot of areas of the company, including sales, operations, warehousing, manufacturing. So when you get to finally manage a brand, you have the understanding of what the sales team goes through, what the operations people go through, and you're able to put together better strategies. One of the most fun anecdotes that I have from my time at Nestle was managing Nesquik. So at the time, Nesquik was the number 7 brand in the country on milk modifiers, and the brand that was the leader was a brand that was marketing to teens. And we had a bunny. Bunny is not very attractive to kids that are that old, but they're very attractive to little kids. So we actually changed our marketing strategy to the younger kids. Because I was 3, 4, 5, started kindergarten. And we were able in 2 years to get from number 7 to number 2 in the market in sales.
Wow, that's awesome. That's a really clear, actionable example. So thanks for sharing that. And Nestle, great brand. So you've really been fortunate to work with some brand powerhouses. And I love speaking to marketing experts. It's a passion of mine, with our brand at New Air and something we really enjoy and, learning about product launches. So I'm hoping to gain some insights from you. And before we get started, I also just wanted to mention to the audience, Yvethe, obviously very deeply knowledgeable about marketing, but also deeply engaged in volunteering her time, was a licensed foster mom, which is really cool. I just did some LinkedIn stalking on you. And then, and I know Christmas is around the corner, so I saw that you also volunteering for Operation Christmas Child. So thanks for doing that. I think that's just people getting involved like that make a big difference.
It actually has been a great experience for me as a person and for us as a family to be involved in these experiences, especially fostering. Fostering is a very difficult in a way experience because you fall in love with these kids that come into your home and these kids, the objective of fostering is that these kids go back to their parents. But through our experience and our training, I think what we learned and embraced is you got to be willing to let your heart be broken if that can mend their heart. And offering these kids love and comfort in a situation that is very difficult. Imagine, you're 6, 7 years old. You wake up and you're in a home that you don't know, with people you don't know, in a place that you don't even know where it is geographically, because these kids have no concept of that. And it's remarkable how resilient children are and how with love and compassion, these kids can really navigate that time. And most time goes back to their parents when their parents go through the process they need to go through. So it was a really interesting experience for us when we lived in Florida. Now that we moved to Massachusetts, it's a different licensing process, so we haven't really got into it, but we really loved being able to do that.
Wow. Yeah. And, something that I guess on the outside you don't know, or, people who haven't been foster parents, is you don't think about that last part, which is, you have to let go of these kids. And when they move back, if the goal is going back to their parents. So yeah, thanks for doing that. I mean, that's making a real difference in someone's life. But wow, so you have a, full, well-rounded life. And, speaking of marketing, and I guess why don't we introduce, the company that you're heading up marketing for, and that's Coravin. Are you able to kind of share a little bit about the, company size as far as, say, total employees, and then also if just because it's fun to understand operations, are you guys managing the distribution of your product through a warehouse yourself? Or are you using a 3PL? Would be interesting to hear a little bit about the company, and also, also if you could start with explaining the Coravin product.
Absolutely. So our mission is a very lofty, but I think real one, which is to change the way the world drinks wine. This is a mission around the world of offering wine lovers a way to drink the wine they want in any amount without ever opening the bottle. So you don't have to compromise with, usually, it's one less fight to have with your spouse. Like, oh, I want white, I want red. Doesn't matter. You drink what you want, know what's open. Or when people come over to your house, you always have that person that visits to say, hey, can I have one more glass? And you have to open a new bottle. And you're like, oh, not anymore. You can actually do that. You can also sell out your bottles if you want to, have a bottle that needs time to reach its peak. You can actually test it without opening, and the flavor in the wine is not going to change more than it would change if it was closed, because there's no oxygen that is in touch with the wine, and there's only a needle that goes through the cork. It uses argon gas to create pressure in the bottle, and argon is the same gas that is used by bottle makers by winemakers in the bottling process. So it's not going to impact the smell or the flavor or the development of the wine. And you get your wine out as much or as little as you want. You remove the Coravin, and the cork will reseal naturally, because it's a very elastic material, and the design of the needle is special, so it will open a channel in the cork instead of piercing it. So it is a really great product for wine lovers, for wine connoisseurs, and it's kind of the reason why I joined the company, because I know that in a few years we're going to be asking ourselves, like, why did people ever open bottles to drink wine? It makes no sense. Yep.
I mean, that's a great explanation. And we'll get into that, because I'm curious, because I've been going to the Housewares show. I'm not the Housewares, that one as well, but this is the Canton Fair, and I've seen a lot of similar products. So we'll get a little bit into the technology. Would love to learn more there. It's actually, partially one of the reasons I don't drink wine, and not the only, but or don't drink as much, just because I might be the only wine drinker at home. My wife doesn't. So yeah, sounds like a remedy for that, right? Where people who don't want to open up a whole bottle.
Exactly.
Yeah. So are you able to share any about the company size, just as understanding, are you guys doing your warehousing? Is that being done elsewhere? And also say the total, employee count, or, something in that range, so we can get an idea.
I can share some things because we're a private company. So we have about 70 global employees or so. We're present as a brand in over 60 countries. U.S. is our largest market. France is the number 2. And we've been growing steadily, double-digit growth in the last 3 years. So it is definitely a startup. It's small and lean, but at the same time, we've been able to grow from only the wineries to then restaurants, and now we're in retail where consumers can purchase a Coravin at the Beth Million or an Amazon or Williams-Sonoma with ease.
Yeah, and wow, and that's incredible scale, though, to be in that many countries with only 70 employees. So you guys are lean and mean, and must be doing a great job there. How about number of products, number of SKUs? Because again, it's a product that pierces the cork so that you can bring the wine out but not disturb the wine, so that you could drink it again later on. Are there a lot of different? I know there's a couple versions, but is the SKU quantity kind of limited because it's really a uniquely focused product, or what can you share there?
Talking from a product line perspective, so we have one system, like you said, that has a needle, goes through the cork, and you can pour without removing the cork. There's only kind of 2 big flavors of it. One of them has a self-pouring feature, so it actually is electronic and is Bluetooth connected to an app that is called Coravin Moments. And so that's another product, actually, that we have, the app. And the app is developed to have a pairing engine so that you can tell it, hey, I want to have pizza, and it will suggest wine for you. Or I have this wine and will suggest foods for you. And it has pairings of wine with movies or books or songs or occasions, because we know that wine is usually a part of those things. You're never just drinking wine. You're drinking wine or reading or hanging out with friends. So that product specifically, which is called Model 11, was our latest product launch. And we launched in CES in January of 2018. A very successful launch. We won 3 awards at the show. And it's been selling really, really well. The app, you can have the app with or without Model 11. Even if you don't have a Coravin, you should have the app if you love wine. And then the other systems that are not electronic are basically differentiated by material, color, and accent. But all of them perform the same job. Even Model 11 does. They let you pour wine without the move the quart.
Wow, so interesting. So I guess, diving right into the business, and I know, private company, only so much you can share, but whatever you're comfortable with, it sounds like you guys are selling, or it looks like you're selling direct to consumer. I was on the website earlier today. You're selling, some B2B and some restaurants, and then you're also selling, different channels online. A couple questions around that. So you have just a couple SKUs. So I want to just get your thoughts on channel management, because if those same SKUs are going out to all these different channels, that can be a big challenge on the marketing and sales side. And along with that, do you implement a MAP pricing policy, or do you have another way to handle the channel management and channel conflict?
So on the first question, I think part of what has made the growth of the product successful is that we started with winemakers and with wineries. We wanted to make sure that we could gain their trust and their endorsement of the efficacy of the product. For the first year and a half, we were mainly working with winemakers, and then we progressed to restaurants and high-end retailers. And I think that was very critical for us to be able to have not only the trust and the credibility coming from winemakers, but also from restaurants that are able to open up their cellars and serve any wine they own by the glass. So once the consumer started seeing the Coravin used by these 2 channels, they're like, I wonder where I can buy it. And at the time, we did have our direct channels, but that was the only way for consumers to get a hold of it. And that gave us credibility with the high-end retailers and the very few people at the beginning that started retailing it. And that started to grow and grow and grow as we expanded. So I think the progression was critical. I think we would have started just at retail, it would have not been the same. But by now, we've done over 900 different wines across the globe where we have blind tasted. We've done blind tastings with over 500 wine professionals, and we've been successful in all of them.
Wow. I mean, what a smart way to start. How long back was that? When was the company kind of gaining that traction? What year was that when it was kind of building its trust and credibility working with winemakers first?
The company opened in July of 2013, and I think the first year and a half or 2 years, it was very focused on winemakers. So, for example, in Napa, the biggest winemakers in Napa all love and endorse and use Corvain. If you look at Rombauer, Peugeot, Sackley, all of them use Corvain. Bordeaux, huge area for Corvain, and around the world, the main wine areas. I just went to Rioja over the summer for an event with Corvain, and most of the winemakers in Rioja use and endorse Corvain. So that takes away the question of does it work? Because it's kind of difficult to does it really work? Is it really years? It's a lofty promise that you can drink your wine in years from today. But when you see a winemaker that cannot identify bottles opened 3 years ago versus today of their own wine, it's kind of like you see a picture of your child and you don't really know which one of the pictures is your kid. It makes you get over the barrier of credibility. So now you can trust the system. It does what it's supposed to do. So I think the next biggest hurdle is how does it fit into my life? And awareness, obviously, because if you don't know it exists, then it's a moot point. But the second part is how does it fit into my life? I'm not a collectioner. I'm not a wine connoisseur. I'm just a regular person that likes to drink wine. Or in your case, if your spouse doesn't drink wine. So do I really need this? And that is the part that right now is the biggest part of our work from a marketing perspective is sharing these occasions, whether it's entertaining or my spouse doesn't drink or drinks a different wine than I do. I actually talked to a couple about a month ago, but they don't drink at all. And I asked them, so what do you do when people go visit? And they looked at each other and went, yeah, we need this thing. Because we always buy a bottle, we pour a glass for them, and we have half a bottle. We don't drink, so we have to trash it. So there you go. You need a Coravin as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many opportunities. And But at the same time, I guess I was going to talk about this later on, but it kind of fits into this conversation. So I have seen similar products at the Canton Fair, but not to the quality of the Coravin brand. Is that because you guys must have some IP protection on it, or have been able to keep those copycatters out because of your IP protection? Is there are you able to speak to that side?
Yeah, it definitely is very well protected from an IP perspective. So we are the only system that allows you to pour without removing the cork.
Got it.
In the world.
Yep.
So what the difference is, when you have a system that you open and close, there's two issues that happen. One, the wine starts degrading the moment oxygen gets in touch with it. So it's more of a process of delaying the dump it moment than truly preserving your wine. So with Coravin, if you have a bottle, it needs 5 more years. You put it back in your cellar, and as long as it's preserved in the right conditions, and you don't put it in the sun or in heat, you go 5 years later, and it will have evolved as if you had never used a Coravin or opened the bottle, because using a Coravin, you don't open the bottle. So that is actually a promise that is very unique. It's a unique selling proposition from Coravin that nobody else has.
And that makes a lot of sense, because I have heard, that the cheaper ones don't work. So kind of to that point, they're letting oxygen get in. And so I guess whenever you can say we're the only one that does this, that's got to be a huge, huge marketing benefit. And so I want to talk about how you think about marketing and how you launch products. But before we get to that, it seems the product is very specific. There's not a lot of variations, it sounds like. Is it fair to say that there are not a lot of product launches because there's just not new variations every year, or are there variations coming out every year? Just curious on like the product roadmap strategy.
Sure. So I think there's a little bit of truth to both statements. So on the one hand, the system per se, we've refreshed it in a way every 2 to 3 years. We launched Model 11, which was a complete different system just because it has electronics, and there's a lot of things associated with that, with the auto pour. But we also have launched very unique accessories. And I'll tell you, my favorite story was the aerator. When about 2 years ago, we started talking about aerators with the founder and inventor of the product, who works with us at the office all the time. And he is a very high-end wine connoisseur. And he was like, I don't like aerators, blah, blah, blah. But he kind of got into the conversation based on insights on, how many wine drinkers know about aerators and appreciate aeration, and actually decanting, which actually aerates the bottle. And he, on a plane, came up with this idea of utilizing the pressure that is created by the argon in the system to break the wine into microjets of wine. So it's actually a very cool thing. You should check it out on the website. If you see a video of it, it looks like a shower of wine.
Wow. Okay, cool. I'll take a look.
It is the coolest thing you'll see. And by breaking the wine in 24 microjets, you expose more wine to more oxygen faster. So you get the same effect of 60 to 90 minutes of decanting, and you'll get it in 10 seconds while you're pouring. And that was invented, created, designed, manufactured, and sold in 99 days.
Wow. That's some speed to market. And I guess, what's interesting is a lot of brands, like, including mine with New Air, there's a lot of SKUs. And so when you're launching SKUs, when you're launching new products, you give them a lot of love, but at the same time, there's others coming right behind it. So it'll be interesting to kind of hear your philosophy on it, because with Coravin, these are really highly focused, and it sounds like you're going to be able to get the whole company around these and plan it out and work on them at a lot deeper level, since there's so many fewer product launches, which can be a benefit because you're able to go really deep. So, kind of starting down that path, how do you gain insights, on a new category? You just talked about decanting. And I think that'd be a great place to start, is how you gain insights, and then describe your insights-driven marketing strategy.
So one of the things that I found as I joined the company 3.5 years ago is, because we're a startup, we don't have a lot of investments or departments or resources allocated to research. So I started, and in all my interviews as I was joining, the number one question that kept coming up is, we don't know our consumer, we don't know who we sell to. However, we have a very robust direct business. So when I joined, I managed customer care. It's under me. And I went to my head of customer care and I said, tell me about what you do. And one of the things she mentioned is we had a customer satisfaction survey. in a club, a loyalty club. And the loyalty club required you to register your system with us. It's free, but you have to register. So we had information about people that own the Coravin, they use the Coravin, and they have been answering questions for at least the length of 2016. So I looked into that data with her and we analyzed it, and we realized that there's a profile that these owners of Coravin that were answering the question had. And we came up with a profile of a user that is an early adopter that have been buying Coravin since inception, and they were using it for in their own home, not necessarily in a business. And these were wine connoisseurs, a little bit older in age, skewing male, very affluent, and extremely knowledgeable about wine. So we created a persona around this profile that we call James, and there's a way in which you have to talk to this profile about wine. However, at the same time, we went and looked into our social media properties, the traffic on Google Analytics, and the behavior, the customer journeys in Google Analytics. And we had at the time a loyalty tool called Friend Buy that it's one of those things where if you buy, I get $25 and you get $25. I think Uber has them and other companies have them. So we started looking at who was advocating for us and who was this emerging consumer that was coming up. And it was completely different. It was a skewing female, a little bit younger, say 45-ish, casual about wine, but at a point in her life where I know what I want and I want that experience with my wine to be good. But I use wine as a difference in my day. So I come home, I take off my shoes, I pour a glass of wine, and now my day about me starts. I stop doing what I have to do and do what I want to do. So that was kind of a pivotal moment in our marketing strategy, in being able to talk to two different audiences and understanding that they don't want to hear the same things. So with that knowledge very fresh in our hands, we started studying what was happening in social media in our own property. And we realized that when we posted casual content in Twitter, for example, the content bombed. But if you posted it on Instagram, it was very successful. And by continuing to dig in this data that we own, we realized that James lives in Twitter and Jennifer lives in Instagram and Facebook. So you can't talk to James about 50 Shades of Red wine because she thinks it's stupid. But if you talk to Jennifer about it, she finds it fun and she engages with that. However, if you talk to Jennifer about the side of the river that the grapes were on in such and such vineyard, it's boring to her. So that content has to go to Twitter, where James absolutely loves to talk about that. And I think that was a very critical moment for us to truly focus the resources that we had, which are not a big company resource, we're very lean and mean also in how we allocate our resources, in telling James and talking to James the way he wants to talk about and engage in wine, and creating a parallel strategy for Jennifer, who's a more casual wine drinker. And that has allowed us to do different colors in our Coravins, different promotional strategies, different channels, because James is a little bit more digital than Jennifer. Jennifer is the one that goes to retail. So if we don't have that audience to put on top to her, our retail distribution is not going to be vibrant.
Super interesting. So and that's interesting that you even manage customer care. And then, so I thought that was, just being VP of the marketing function, but also managing customer care and then going through the data and then finding your two profiles and putting those together. And I was going to kind of dig deeper and find out, well, wait a minute, if you have two different profiles, how do you, not get your marketing message mixed up? But I think you kind of explained it by just saying that, Twitter is for James. And then, your other, the female profile is on Instagram and Facebook, but still, you're creating, you still don't have different SKUs, do you? I mean, it's still the same SKU. So then what do you do, say, on your digital retail pages, like on a Wayfair or a Williams-Sonoma? Do you kind of have to combine the two profiles, or how do you have to think about it from that experience?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. What we did was, once we identified these profiles and we had this data, we wanted to make sure that we listened to them live. So we did some focus groups with James and Jennifer and combined in some people who were not our targets, but a little bit younger, millennials, to understand how they view wine. And one of the things that was very clear is that wine, whether you're a Jennifer or a James, wine is an intermediate point in your day. You may see it a little bit different. Maybe for James, wine is more about what he knows about it, but it's also a reward for a job well done during the day. For Jennifer, it's a moment of relaxation. It's a break in her day. It's saying, even if she did a fantastic job at work, she doesn't think about it as a reward. She thinks about it as like, great, now I can think about me and I can relax and I can celebrate the little things in life, like putting my kids to bed. That is a Coravin moment. I can celebrate. So we heard these things from them. And we actually crafted our first campaign, which was launched in 2017, our first TV commercial. And every line of that commercial came from the mouth of a consumer. And I think that's why it resonated so well with them. Whether it was a Jennifer or a James, this theme of having wine be a break in the day was constant. And I can tell you from that moment to today, every single time that we do qualitative research and we ask them how they feel about wine, inevitably it comes up at the end of the day, there's nothing better than a glass of wine every single time.
Wow. Super insight. We sell wine coolers. So this is like, I'm taking notes here. I'll send our final podcast to my marketing team. But yeah, we're always, we're doing the same thing. We're looking at customer insights and, shelving types and glass types and, what they're looking for storage. But I like that, how you summed it up. It's a break in the day. And I think that's a great way to say it. Yvethe, by the way, question, just kind of going back in time, when you were with other, Nestle and Newell and Spectrum, did you have really clear customer profiles like you do here at Corvin? Was that something that you had always had?
Not really. I mean, in Nestle, a little bit better, especially with brands like Nesquik, which is a milk modifier and it's for children. And it actually depends on how you see it. You can succeed or fail. And in Nestle, specifically with Nesquik, when I started managing the brand, the market was dominated by a brand that was marketing to teens. So, 14, 15, that were drinking this as a smoothie, as a chocolate smoothie. And the character for Nesquik is a bunny. So honestly, it's lame if you're 14 or 13. So the strategy that we crafted to win in the market was to actually appeal to children, to 4, 5-year-olds that are stopping to drink milk or that are not wanting to drink pill anymore or formula and are getting into, you have to drink pills, so now we're going to make it taste like chocolate. And by doing that for 3 years in a row, we went from number 7 in the market to number 2 in the market. So we actually created, if you will, a generation next week that was starting very young and then growing with them until they were too cool for the bunny. So you get to capitalize on 7 years of milk drinking that in the past would have been, let's go after what the leader in the market is going. Sometimes you have to, I am a big believer in blue ocean. Well, I don't have the money, the resources, or the type of brand to go fight with this guy. There's a whole blue ocean next to it where nobody's fishing, and that's what I'm going to make my market. And it was tremendously successful to the point that we were the second brand.
I mean, that's cool. I think, and it's funny, I've seen those brands in my house as well. I think Ovaltine and I think there might have been another as well. I'm always seeing these chocolate drinks, and I'm like, man, wow, where's some water? It's always giving the kids a hard time.
That's true. But I had grown up with the Nestle buddy when I was a kid. So when I was offered the opportunity to manage it, I was actually told that I could change the chocolate brand if I wanted to and bring Milo, which was very strong in Brazil, south of my country. And I told the vice president of marketing at the time, and no, we're going to find a way with Nesquik because I grew up with it. The bunny went to my birthday, one of my birthdays. I think I was like 8. But it was something where we just had to look at the problem in a different way. Why go after the same audience that the market leader has? It's a tougher fight, and it kind of tires you when there's a whole other segment of the market that is not being catered to. There's not a real brand that is leading the charge. And we created a direct marketing. At the time, there was an email, as it is today. So it was a direct marketing club where we sent them things 4 times a year in the mail. And it was a type of a DHL or FedEx type of mail. So imagine if the FedEx person comes to your door and goes and knocks and asks for your 4-year-old. The moms were like, what? And the kids were all excited that they're getting a package for them. So it ended up being very successful in brand awareness and brand equity, but also in sales.
Yeah. And you're, the way you approach it is spot on with going with the blue ocean strategy and 100%. If there's a new market out there that can be created, or if you can avoid competing, head to head with somebody who's already entrenched in a category, that's the right approach. And that's a cool story. Just seeing it all the way through. And, kind of bringing it back to Coravin, because I really, really like how you really, really clearly identify these customer profiles. A lot of us brands, and that's who this audience is, a lot of brand owners and CEOs. We always say we're going to do it, and we think our marketing teams are doing it. But, truth be told, it's hard to be so clear about it, because you're always afraid of leaving some profiles out, right? Or if you're only speaking to one, or you're not speaking to others. So I really like that approach. And how about walking us through how you handle assets? Even if you want to talk about how they're created at the company, if you have internal teams, as far as content and photography and video, or if you're outsourcing part of those functions, it would be interesting to understand just the assets, the cycle of creating it, because your site's it's beautifully done. And it's because you're dealing with a sophisticated end consumer, but it would be great to hear your approach.
Well, thank you for your comments on the website. Actually, the website is one of those stories that I like as well, to involve small companies. So I'm in charge of e-commerce for the world, but I'm also in charge of a bunch of other stuff. So we, the VP of IT and myself, got together and we decided to implement this methodology called Hacking Growth. And Hacking Growth is a team methodology where we have different people in the team. We have a product person, we have a designer, a content creator that is part of the team. We have developers, and we all work together on the site. So it's the core of the methodology is test small and scale what wins. So we spend the whole year testing, and because Q4 obviously is a big season for us, testing and scaling, testing and modifying, so that when we got to the end of the year, the site would be optimized for us to make the most of it. So this is truly a complete team effort, even though I do the forecast and I own the revenue. At the end of the day, the way the site works has been a collaboration of people who have other jobs in the company, but that also are part of this team. So we found that that's a really good way to have content that is created and to have value that is added by people that don't necessarily own the website, but they co-own it in little tiny pieces. So going back to your question on content, we have a content manager in-house, but we also create content for the world. So it's not realistic to think that she's going to do all the work. So we partner with some vendors for some videos, the videos on how to unbox and how to use the product we do outside. The design of a lot of the things is done inside. So a lot of the point of sale material is designed internally. The social media content is designed with our social media agency. They create the content, they curate it, and they publish it for us. So it's a really good balance of both, but we have internally a director of consumer and customer marketing and the content manager that makes sure that everything looks and feels the same, so that our brand is present in the same way everywhere.
Yep, makes sense.
So I hope that helps.
Yeah, no, it does.
I don't know if I answered the question well.
And I'm writing questions down, so I'm listening to how you have it set up and writing it down. But no, I like that. I mean, so you call that terminology, you call it hacking growth, where you test? Hacking
growth. It's actually based on a book.
Oh, wow. Okay. Do you know the name of it?
We didn't come up with it, but it's based on a book. It was recommended to us by the company that we partner for the website development. So all of our developers work for this other company, and they had been reading the book and have been talking about the book. And our VP of IT went for a conference over there and came back and said, "Oh, we need to read this book." And we read it and was like, "Wow, the methodology looks interesting," but it seems like a daunting task when you first think about it. It's like, who's going to be in the team and how are these people going to have time? It's a lot of time. So we decided, we called the team and we said, okay, guys, look, this is the first time we do this. All of us are going to learn together, but we want all of you to have a piece of the website. And you have different skill sets and abilities that there's no one person in the room that can have all of that. So we want to work as a team. So every Monday since January, we've met for an hour, at least every Monday. And every Monday we go through what are the things that we're going to test, what are the results of the test last week, and what are we going to implement. And it truly, at the beginning, was a little bumpy, I think, like, everything usually is. But by now, it's a well-oiled machine. And they have taken such a huge ownership of the things that we do on the website, and digitally, and email marketing, or on the website, that it has become easier for the VP of IT and myself to become more of mentors and guiders for this team than doers, which we had to be at the beginning. So it also, I think, empowers the team in a very different way. And if they fail, if something that we test doesn't succeed, you're testing so small that it doesn't impact overall the performance of the site. But if it succeeds, you're able to scale and make a huge impact. So I think it has the best of both worlds.
Yeah. And so talking about the site really quick, are you able to share the platform? Are you on Shopify or Magento, or what's the backend platform?
We're on Magento.
You're on Magento? Okay. And then do you have an e-commerce manager, or are you having to kind of handle all of that, as far as, deciding on apps?
So globally, Como falls under me. And I don't have a person that manages that. So that's a part of what I do. a lot of that is making sure the assortment, the pricing, the forecast, the revenue, kind of own that with the VP of IT, but ultimately I'm responsible for it. So I think this methodology of having a team that can own the execution, the ideas, the testing, they truly are the owners of how the website looks in every single country where we are. So we do this on a global level. So we have members of the team in Europe that participate in our calls every week, and they can bring that experience and that knowledge of what's going on in their region. But we do the forecast, for example, from here and the assortment from here. So it's been a really interesting experience for all of us.
And again, you may or may not be able to share, but just with a lot of companies, even mine included, obviously it's, selling through some of these large retailers, it's easier to get eyeballs on products, especially now than it was, 7 or 8 years ago. So, Amazon's owning a huge share of online sales. Other companies, that you work with, Wayfair and all those others, are owning a huge share. And a lot of direct-to-consumer brands are, usually their websites is a much smaller share of total business sales. Is that the same with you guys, or is that actually like a really strong component of overall company sales and growth?
So I wouldn't say is the main one. I think that the way that we have partnered with the sales team, I think has been the most critical thing that we've done to make sure that both can grow at the same time. So we decided, when I started managing the site, I took the head of sales and we said, I want to be a complementary channel to you, not a competitor. So when you go to our side, you will see a lot of bundles and a lot of things that nobody else offers. And that's because we want to offer the consumer a different experience. So we want to make sure that if you want to buy an accessory for your product, that you can find it with us. Any type of needle, every type of aerators, bases, carry cases. So there's no way a retailer is going to carry this big of an assortment. And we also create bundles that offer you more value. But price-wise, and I think you asked this question a little bit earlier, we do have kind of a math policy where all of us sell at the same price. And when we're on sale, everybody's on sale. When we're not on sale, we're on sale. So we don't want to be a competitor to our retailers. We want to make sure the consumer can find kind of a deeper experience with us. So you have a lot more learning, like we talked, Coravin as a product does the same regardless of the flavor. So a lot of people ask, which one should I buy? So we offer people ways to identify that. You can take a quiz, which is kind of fun. You can look at a chart, and if you're more like analytical and you want to see the differences, and then it's easier for you to choose. If you want to see reviews, this is a place to come, history of the company. So I think we're offering a different experience, and we've been growing steadily at the same rate that the retail is growing, but it is a part of our business, but it's not the number one driver of the business. Retail is the lion's share.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing that that information, because that is interesting. I always ask that on the podcast about channel conflict, because it's always a big deal. So congrats, you guys are able to manage that with a MAP policy. But also, I think, for the audience, a key takeaway there is that, if they can bundle products, and it's hard to do it with every type of product, but, if you're creative, you're going to find a way. And it sounds like that's another way that you can avoid channel conflict, is by creating, unique bundles on the Coravin website. So thanks for sharing. That's really tangible, useful information, and a really cool strategy. And, I can tell your marketing knowledge is so deep. And I think a lot of, by the way, like a lot of the audience is going to be companies, brands that are really good. Maybe they came at it in-store first, and Coravin is, starting in July 2013, you guys kind of started digital. So, if you can think, a lot of brands will start in-store and they really have to learn digital, and that's not really their DNA. And I guess, just kind of finishing up our conversation here, what is maybe, a really key practical bit of advice, or even a philosophy that you can share with other brand owners on how they can improve their marketing strategy, or even marketing teams at their companies?
I think that for me, and this has been throughout my whole career in marketing, I always start with the consumer. I think sometimes we want to start with a product because it's easier. We want to start with the experience or the channel. I think if you start with the consumer and you really listen, they will give you everything you need to craft your marketing strategy. They'll tell you where they want to listen from you. They'll tell you where they want to engage with you. They'll tell you the products they're thinking about. And I think a lot of people that I talk to, a lot of my peers, they tell me, well, if if the consumer doesn't know that the product exists, they can't really tell you, then the iPhone wouldn't exist. And I tend to disagree with that. I think the need of an iPhone was never verbalized by any consumer, but the need of communication and connectivity, I bet you was verbalized 1,000 times. So we have to listen beyond the product and just listen for the need of the consumer. If you hear people that are saying, "Oh, I have to buy this wine," and like you would tell me, maybe my spouse doesn't drink and I do, and I don't know what to do because maybe I'll just pass and I won't drink anything. Well, that's the need right there that is unanswered. The consumer will find kind of ways around to solve for it until you tell them you don't have to compromise, you don't have to settle. You actually can do what you deep inside want to do. And all of this is coming from the consumer. So I guess that is something that has been a constant in my whole career, is listen to the consumer and really try to lead with data and insight versus just going purely with your gut. I think there's a really good balance between the two. But a lot of times as innovators, and especially in categories of products that are new, we tend to think the consumer doesn't know. I just have to tell them. And when you turn that around, I think you find a richer pool of information to really craft strategies that work.
Wow, that's spot on. I love it. And I like how you're able to say things so succinctly, but always start with the consumer, not the product. We're all guilty of doing the opposite. So that's perfect message at your end. Yeah. We always want to tinker with the product and how do we make the product better and on and on and on. But like you said the consumer will tell you, what to do. That's awesome. Thanks for that, Yvethe. And how can listeners connect with you or find you? Is LinkedIn a good option, or is there anywhere else that you would prefer?
Yeah, LinkedIn is a great option. Yvethe Tyszka, the spelling of my last name is a little interesting. It's Tyszka, but absolutely you can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can check out Coravin.com. You can see the senior management team here, and I'll be there, a picture of me. And I'm sure you can connect with me that way as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Yvethe. I want to thank you for joining us on the Page One podcast, and also all of our listeners. Thanks for joining us on the Page One podcast, sponsored by Retail Band. And quick reminder, if you're looking for a free evaluation of your online digital strategy, and also take a look to see if influencer marketing could be an opportunity for you, contact me on LinkedIn or find me at luke@retailband.com. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this content, would really appreciate a review, and take care.
Thanks for listening to the Page One podcast with Luke Peters. If you like our show and want to know more, check out our other segments. Also, please help us out by leaving us a rating on iTunes. Want to learn more about our commerce? Check out www.retailband.com to get more great tips and tricks on how to accelerate your e-commerce sales with the big box retailers.